Greetings, fellow space travelers, BionicDance here. I'm doing another off-the-cuff video, partly because people seem to like it, partly because I'm not actually responding to somebody, and partly because, yeah, setting up the green screen's a bit of a pain in the butt. In my last video, I was talking about how babies are atheists because they lack a belief in gods, why lacking belief in gods is the basis for all atheism. The reasons why lacking belief rather than active disbelief is more important goes far beyond babies, so let's cut them out of the equation for a moment because apparently that's controversial. First things first, belief in the Abrahamic God, the God of the Jews, Christians, and Muslims, is so prevalent in today's society that it's really easy to lock focus on it and forget that humanity has postulated lots of other gods as well, some of whom are still believed in by people today. Now, I will say that I'm pretty darn sure that the Abrahamic God doesn't exist. Why am I so certain? Because this book makes some pretty wacky-ass claims, and they're claims that we can check through archaeology, geology, and other similar sciences. And we have. And we found that they're just plain not true. Now, this doesn't mean that there isn't a God, and it doesn't even mean there isn't an Abrahamic God. It just means that the God being described to us by his followers definitely doesn't exist. So not only do I lack belief in the Abrahamic God, I actually have active disbelief in that God. And it's pretty much the same for every other god I've ever heard of, be it Norse, Egyptian, Greco-Roman, Hindu, whatever. But I can only react to the gods that people have presented to me. Perhaps there's some jungle tribe out there who believes in mumbo-jumbo monkey god of the Congo, and I've never heard of him. This is what my face looks like when I'm not believing in that god. I lack belief because I've never heard of him, but I don't have active disbelief because I've never heard of him. And babies are the same because they lack belief in every god they've never heard of. But let's cut humanity out of the picture entirely. Suppose there really is a god out there, but it's one of those deistic gods who created the universe and then fucked off to another dimension, leaving us to hold the bag, and left no evidence of itself after it left. If that were true, then we would all lack belief in a god that really does exist. You see, I don't believe in gods, not one, and I actively disbelieve in a huge plethora of gods. But I acknowledge the possibility that I might be wrong. Some people might try to tell you that this makes me an agnostic rather than an atheist, despite the fact that I'm saying that certain gods definitely don't exist, at least as they've been described to me. Why agnostic should be completely separate from atheism is frankly bogglesome to me. As I see it, it should be obvious that belief and its absence comes in a spectrum rather than a bunch of self-contained bubbles. Ask most outspoken atheists these days, and they'll tell you that agnostic should be treated as an adjective rather than a noun, and that it describes an absence of knowledge, and that absence of knowledge of gods is the reason why they're atheists. Because some of the more limited definitions that some would impose upon us leave us without the tools to accurately describe what is so if it comes up. A lot of the objections I saw to having a more broad definition of atheism that includes babies and inanimate objects is that we would never say it in real life. We would never call babies atheists. But you know what? That doesn't matter. You ever get one of those online customer satisfaction surveys and one of the questions are like, how likely are you to recommend AT&T to a friend? And I look at that question and I think to myself, I probably wouldn't, because it would probably never come up. I'm not just going to say out of the blue, hey guys, AT&T. That doesn't mean that I don't have fairly strong feelings about my cell phone service, and it certainly doesn't mean that I would leave out my opinions if the topic came up. So while I may not look at a newborn and go, aha, an atheist, that doesn't mean it's not an accurate description. So saying that certain people who lack belief and therefore are atheists shouldn't count as atheists because we wouldn't call them that in casual conversation, well, that's just chowder-headed. When we strip these terms of their social baggage and use them in a purely technical sense, it should be fairly obvious that cutting anybody who lacks belief out of the category of atheism just plain doesn't make any sense. Quite frankly, I don't care if you wouldn't use it in casual conversation or if it hurts your feelings or gives you a Wiggins. Atheism is the right word for those who lack belief in gods. So why is lack of belief important to what makes someone an atheist? Because insisting that atheistic non-belief be knowing and informed is not describing reality, it's drawing battle lines and picking a side. So when you decide which definition of atheism you prefer, ask yourself what you're actually doing. Are you dispassionately describing reality, or are you having an emotional reaction to what is, after all, a fairly contentious issue? Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.
Even YouTubers need Ferraris. Please donate on Patreon.
Should have rated, unsubscribed. Oh.